I've always gotten a kick out of the future of work. And I've always gotten a kick out of it, not because it's not interesting to me, because I do find it to be interesting. What I find to be funny about it is that the people that talk about the future of work don't really know what the future of work is going to be. They simply express that it's going to be different than it is today. So we'll put that there because I'm interested in talking a little bit about that from a different perspective. What I'm interested in talking about is how do I do a good job as a parent in preparing my kids to be successful in life, certainly, but professionally. How can I position them to be able to earn a living? How do I position them to be able to feel like they are doing good and meaningful work and not just some kind of a cog in a machine? Or, I mean, one of my probably my biggest fear as a parent is having a kid that just isn't interested in anything and therefore just sort of goes through the motions and is carried along by the currents of life, which is something that way too many of us do. And that wonderful quote that most men, most people lead lives of quiet desperation. Don't want that for my kids. I don't want them to fall in the trap of being unable to sit quiet in their room by themselves, which Blaise Pascal said is the one of the biggest reasons for all of humanity's problems are or is the inability, our inability, human beings' inability to sit quietly in a room by oneself. So, all of these things. So, what must we teach young people in order to prepare them to be successful just moving forward in the age of constant disruption, constant innovation, constant change, all that kind of stuff, and moving really, really, really quickly? How do we navigate all this stuff? Because we clearly are not currently effectively slash successfully navigating it. I think right now it's just eating our lunch and we're getting smoked by it. So why would more complexity and more change why would we respond any different or any better if we're already doing poorly in relatively slow change and across the spectrum of time, it's really rapid change. Um, that's what I'm interested in. And you know all too well about how much your life has changed and how much it will continue to change. I am I was born in 1978, so I am the kind of the tail end of the Gen X, and that means that obviously I was born before the internet. I was a teenager before cell phones. I wasn't until I was working professionally that I owned a computer and that I owned a cell phone, and that was in my early 20s, like probably 23 is when I got a cell phone, and I didn't buy a computer until several years after that. So didn't have a laptop until many, many years after that. So, and then of course social media came around when I was around 30 years old, and I didn't start using that until probably right around that time. So anyway, so I remember how things were, but everybody can share that story. Boomers certainly can share that story, and young people that are born into a certain situation, their lives are going to be markedly different as well in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So I'm not sharing any kind of groundbreaking stories about change and adaptation or living and stuff like that because human beings are always changing and adapting. But back to the whole point of this. How do we help our kids become future ready? Let's just call it that. Let's say, how do we help young people become future ready? And I think that the first thing, there's around 7 things that I want to go through. First thing is just being able to think clearly. Is that obvious to you? It's not necessarily obvious to me. And we are constantly thinking, or rather, we're constantly using our brains and processing information. But how much are we doing? And are we able to engage in really deep work? Are we able to be thinking critically? This is something I've been thinking about for a really long time. I can remember doing podcast episodes in 2016 about the imperative nature of being able to critically think. And that is the ability to evaluate information, identify assumptions that you're making, recognize bias that you have, and then to suss out and distinguish opinions from facts, facts from opinions. It's like when you are mining for gold or panning for gold, and you've got your pan, you're going through in the river and you're shaking out the rocks and looking for those gold nuggets. That's kind of what critical thinking is we're sussing through and sorting through a bunch of crap and trying to figure out what's really going on here. That's a great way to think about critical thinking is what's really going on here? How do I think this all the way through? So how do we teach our kids to do that? And it's that, but it's fundamentally it's developing the skill and the muscle of doing that. And the only way that you do that is by doing it and doing it repeatedly and being thoughtful and mindful about where it is that you're falling victim to bias, where it is that you're falling victim to assumption. So getting through that or getting to that step, we have to be able to think logically and reason and to reason. Now, this is not me saying we want to avoid emotion. It's not that. It's that there is direct cause and effect, and logic and reasoning help us to do that, where we can follow steps in an argument and solve problems using this kind of structured thinking. If I do this, this is the result that I can expect, but certainly there are a myriad of different things that could be happening. I think it's really important to be able to encourage and teach young people to be able to reflect and be aware of different patterns of thinking. So to think about what it is that you are thinking about, or rather to think about how it is that you think. So we don't catch ourselves just looping on the same stuff over and over again. I think that recognizing that most of us do have some kind of negative, limiting, or flawed thinking, and um, not by anything that we did to ourselves, just rather the experiences that we had when we were young. Some of it's DNA, but a lot of it is just our actual lived experiences and the interactions that we've had with people sort of give us our wiring or our operating system. Another way to think about that are your values. And I believe that that is how we process the information that we take in. So that's number one. Number two, problem solving. We have to teach kids to problem solve and to do it creatively. So and again, that sounds kind of obvious, but it's not, because encouraging curiosity and encouraging young people to ask why and what if without being fearful of or just being shy about asking that question. And I can remember back when I was a student or a kid in like elementary school and high school and probably even in college, being reticent and nervous about raising my hand in class. And if I felt that way, then I'm sure that a lot of other people have felt that way too. And that's a hindrance. And we need to be confident enough to be able to ask why and what if. I think it's also important to be able to learn about system thinking, so understanding how the individual parts connect to larger systems. So how an individual's behavior impacts group dynamics, how just one part of a system impacts the entire ecosystem. I think that that's a really important thing because human systems are everywhere. We are part of human systems in every avenue and every arena or aspect of life. So important to understand that. I think that instilling or trying to teach kids how to be gritty and how to be adaptable is a really important thing. The ability to stick through things when they get tough, the ability to change gears, to pivot, to adjust when things do not go how we expected or when they fail. It's an extremely important thing. Being able to employ strategic trial and error. So not just randomly experimenting and trying different things, but learning from each iteration. and asking what worked, what didn't work, and why do I think that the result came out the way that it did, and what inputs can I adjust or manipulate, so on and so forth, that will get me a different result. We need to be able to communicate. We need to be able to effectively and powerfully communicate. I believe that life is the sum of the interactions that we have with other people. And so, therefore, our interpersonal communication skills are going to be as valuable, probably more than they ever have before. And I think a very unfortunate byproduct of technology and how young people are currently interacting with it. Since I am not a young person who is currently interacting with technology with other young people, I can't say that this is definitively true, but my perception, what I've observed is that these are people that are not consistently having one-on-one, face-to-face interpersonal communications, or not engaging in engaging conversations. So we need to be able to articulate and speak our thoughts and our opinions clearly and confidently and well structured. We have to be able to do the same with our writing. And those two things go hand in hand. So writing and speaking, extremely important. We need to teach young people how to listen and how to ask good questions. So it's active listening. It's not just waiting for the time when I recognize the person that I'm supposed to be speaking or having a conversation with has stopped talking and now I get to talk again. It's actually asking open-ended, thought-provoking, thoughtful questions to deepen my understanding. We all need more emotional intelligence. So EQ, emotional intelligence, being able to read the room, being able to understand the tone and the tenor, and managing my own emotions and responding appropriately to others, critical. Telling stories, not BS stories, but using narrative to get a point across, just the most beautiful form of showing instead of telling. You remember that? Show, don't tell. Well, using stories, using metaphor, using emotions, that's a great way to influence and move people along. We need to teach young people to understand how to learn. So, learning to learn, self-directed learning. This is, I mean, my goodness, I was having a conversation with my wife about what I wouldn't have given when I was beginning my athletic career 500 years ago to have YouTube and to be able to watch. I was a tennis player, so if I could have watched, the top players at the time and learned how they hit the ball and how they hit forehands and backhands and so whatever, I just would have killed probably, maybe literally, to have access to that. So being able to take initiative and to independently go out and get the information that I desire and figure out how to do that. Self-directed learning is extraordinary. Being curious, I talked about making or being able to ask good questions, but making curiosity a habit. So being curious can absolutely replace frustration and anger, but it's just a wonderful thing on its own. So normalizing the habit of investigation, of reading, watching, wondering, and just fundamentally making learning, gathering new information, making that a joy instead of a pain in the neck or a burden. So I think that that's a really important thing. Obviously, we need to be fluent technologically. So we need to be able to understand how to interface and how to use all the different tools that are already online or will be coming online. But I think that that goes along with what it is that I've been talking about. Principles of self-management. This is, from my perspective, the most important thing. I have to be a good self-manager. I am not interested in having to be told what time to be somewhere, what to do while I'm there, what time to leave. No thanks. I'm interested in managing my own attitude, my own effort. So if I can master the habits of managing my own attitude and effort, so you're talking about work ethic, ability to work hard, the ability to have a proper mindset, to be able to emotionally regulate. If you can teach your children how to emotionally regulate on their own, what a wonderful gift that you provided them. Because there are not enough people who can regulate their emotions. Not even close. So we have to be able to manage our own time, energy, effort, attention, our own finances. Those are all critical aspects of self management. We all have the same most valuable resources or MVRs of time, attention, energy, and money. So learning how best to make decisions on how I'm going to allocate those will result directly in my level of success, achievement, enjoyment, fulfillment, all of these things. We have to teach kids how to reach goals. We have to teach them about goal setting. We have to, frankly, make them do it. Do you have your goals written down? Have you written your goals down? Only 3% of Americans have. So obviously, the vast majority do not. So if you could teach your kids how to write down, how to think about a goal, how to write it down, and then how to make plans for achieving it and then execute, I mean, that's probably one of the greatest gifts you can give somebody. How to establish habits and routines, which I refer to as success rituals. That's what it's all about. Your habits define you. Tell me about your habits, and I'll tell you where you will be or where you will not be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We have to teach our kids to be ethical, to be kind, to be thoughtful, to be mindful. We need to be empathetic. We need to understand right from wrong. We need to be able to make tough decisions even when it doesn't benefit us. It's so critical. We need to teach kids to recognize the impact that we are having, that they are having on other people. I talk about this as knowing your wake and understanding your wake. If you've ever been boating, get in a boat, you pull out of the boat's parking spot, which is called a slip, and then you taxi, for lack of a better term, to the area. So if you are in a marina, you pull out of the slip and taxi through the marina. And then when you get to the no wake, when you're out of the no wake zone, so the marina is a no wake zone, which just means that you don't step on the gas and go 100 miles an hour out of the marina because you will be sending waves and ruining everybody else's day and just really disturbing and being a massive disturbance. So we have to understand the impact that we're having on those people around us. What is the impact that I'm having on people that I run into casually? What is the impact that I'm having on people that I'm working with? All of it. And my friendships, you name it, I need to understand how the choices that I am making are impacting the people that I have directly coming in contact with, but also just the greater world. We have to value the common good. It's important that we get back to having a high trust society. And the only way that we're ever going to get there is if you and I and our children and young people think beyond just the tip of their nose. If you've got a group and generations of people who are so self-centered that they don't care and they're not taking the time to think about others, well, you get the culture that we have today. So there you have it. I think that if we're able to instill in young people and my children and your children these lessons, I think that we will have served them well, or at least positioned them for success, whatever the future is going to look like and whatever the future of work is going to look like. And this is a fluid thing, and this is my first swing at it. So I'm not an expert in any of this, obviously. It's just my thoughts. So do with those what you will. As always, do your part by doing your best.